Welcome to Time Traveling Team, the weekly podcast where we review every story of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Paddy.
And I'm Tricia. As 2022 comes to an end, we decided to record a special look back Q&A rambling in the TARDIS. We have some questions from our listeners. We have some questions from each other. And also just generally sort of shoot the shit, really. If you heard our rambling for Leela, we already explained that given the fact that the next season we're reviewing of Doctor Who is a continuous arc, we didn't really see the point in starting that before Christmas. So instead, you get random rambling shit. But good random rambling shit. Which is the important part.
Awesome. I am looking forward to all the shit talk. As always, we would love to hear your thoughts on anything we discussed today. So in order to join the discussion, you can check us out at Time Teamp. That's TIMETEAMP on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Or you can email us at timetravelingteamp@teamproductions.com. So, thank you very much to all the people that submitted questions.
Yes.
We have also submitted questions for each other and also specific questions in relation to, I have questions for Trish, and then she has questions for me, and then there is the aforementioned shit talk.
Cool. Do we want to order? Because I have 4 questions for you, and you have 2 questions for me. So.
Yeah, I was trying to think of questions for Trish, and it's surprisingly hard because I think again, it's just we talk about stuff so much off air that it's oh yeah, maybe the listening public would like to hear that aspect of something, but that doesn't come to your mind when you're asked to do specific questions.
Should I start asking you a question?
Yes, maybe you should. Maybe you should.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. I have 2 questions related to podcasting. I have 1 question just Doctor Who related, and I have 1 sort of fan casting question. So let's go with the Doctor Who question, right?
Okay.
You have to go into solitary for a month. Think of it maybe a Big Brother thing, or you contract some weird obscure disease. We don't know. We're going to go with the Big Brother thing, probably better.
All right.
You're allowed to bring with you 1 Doctor Who story.
Right.
That we have reviewed. So only up until what we reviewed.
Yeah.
You can bring the DVD if you want. You can get special features if you want. That's fine. Which one do you pick and why?
No, I have a question for you. In this solitary setting, is this Doctor Who DVD the only thing I am allowed to bring into me? Or is this the only Doctor Who related thing I could bring in with me?
Oh, it's the only thing you're allowed to watch.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
Okay, I'll do some world building in my weird scenario I've made up, right?
Alright.
Food is not an issue. Sleep is not an issue. Light is not an issue. Toiletry is not an issue.
Alright.
From an entertainment perspective, we'll give you a Kindle, right? So books are not an issue. But from a visual media perspective, it is 1 Doctor Who. And you're waving the pen. You can listen to Dan and Paul's podcast the whole time in front.
Okay, thank you very
much. From a visual medium perspective, you have 1 Doctor Who story for a month. Which one is it and why?
The Gunfighters. No, it is not the fucking Gunfighters. I couldn't even carry that bit on. It's a very tough question because I have 3 automatically came to mind.
Okay.
The 3 that came to mind were the Aztecs, the Romans, and the War Games.
Okay.
No, apart from them being all 5 out of 5s for me, they all have something very different that I have a connection to. So, I love the Romans. It's one of the funniest Doctor Who stories. It's one of the just all-around best Doctor Who stories. The Aztecs I routinely look up clips of that because I love the level of interaction between Hartnell and Barbara. And then the War Games, while it eats up more time, it's, again, as I said, I'd go through it in one sitting. So relatively speaking, the time the time utilized or wasted watching it's minuscule into the grand scheme of this overall month. Like, I'd watch it in a fucking day. Um, in terms of rewatchability, I'd probably go with the Romans.
Romans?
Yeah, I'd probably take the Romans.
Cool. Good choice. Good choice. Should I ask you some more questions, or do you want to ask me a question? We should have planned this better, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We just threw questions in a document.
Yeah. We took the half measures approach. You ask me one more question, and I'll see if I can think of stuff up.
Okay. So, I'm going to ask you a question that's very interesting. In terms of the podcast, right? I have a question for later on, which is similar to a question you have for me. But the question I want to ask you: what's been your least favorite part?
Joking answer is recapping 6-part stories.
I'm sure that's not entirely a joke either.
Yeah. Like, I'll never forget doing the fucking 8-part second part of the Daleks master plan. Fuck's sake. I think the least favorite part is and it's entirely kind of like, I think it's part and parcel of the experience that we're going for, but my least favorite part is seeing characters that I like under a different lens, and you go back and you're like, actually, that's kind of, it's incredibly shitty. Like, that's an incredibly shitty person. Or I'm trying to think. There's some show like that when you go back and you're watching, and like, Christ Almighty, everyone in this fucking show is an asshole.
Friends.
Yeah, pretty much. Or one thing that, like, my wife Sarah got me into, that every time I go back, I'm like, yeah, you empathize less and less with, like, the heroes is Gilmore Girls. You're like, no, everyone in the show is a fucking prick to some degree. So I think it's like seeing, like, the Fourth Doctor really change dynamic with people, and, like, I suppose, like any human individual, your best friend leaves and another person comes in, you're not going to have the same dynamic with them, or even in work, you work with someone that you get a really good rapport with, and then they leave and then someone else takes their position. Again, it's not the same rapport. You can't make the same jokes, you can't do the same activities, you can't expect the same level of whatever it is that you had before, but you don't take it out on that person. But I think as well, and sorry to keep rambling on, but then again, is par for the course in this particular episode. My least favorite part of the podcast is, it's not actually anything to do with the podcast itself, is by doing the podcast, I discovered a newfound love for the First Doctor. We both did. What I have hated as a part of that, it is my least favorite part as a result of that, is going online and seeing people bash the First Doctor based on a glossary viewing or only experiencing him from the modern take. Not going back and watching the character and just having this thing of, like, where if you go back and you watch, you see an arc to be from becoming, yes, the prick that he was, to the impish grandfather that people that adore him for. And if you're going to level these accusations of, sexism or, just bullyishness or anything like that, fast forward 3 years and you've got it in spades for the next, 8 seasons. Yeah. So that's, and it's a love-hate thing. But if that made sense, if that answered your question.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. All right, I have a question for you. Seeing as how I talked about Hartnell and talked about his successor, people that have who have something very big in common, and that is that they are the ones that have their errors with missing stories. And as an overall experience, how did you find reviewing the missing stories?
As an overall experience, it was a challenge. I'm not going to lie. Um, we talked when we started doing the missing stories. We talked about how years ago, when I first got into Doctor Who, I think you shared with me the loose cannon stuff. I think I tried one or two. I was like, "Fuck, I can't do this. Like, I really can't.
Mm.
It's really difficult." And a lot of them were really difficult. But in saying that, I'm really glad we did them because, like, Dalek's master plan, like, she's not in my top five, right? But like, one of the people who's cast as a companion that I'm like, oh my god, I wanted more from them is fucking Sarah Kingdom. I wanted to see more. I mean, we don't actually really see her that much in that story because the majority of that story is missing.
Mm-hmm.
And had we just skipped it, we wouldn't have got it. Mission to the Unknown. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Brent,
Mm.
Brett rather, not Brent.
Yeah.
You know,
Although Mission to the Unknown was Mark Corey.
oh,
Brett was the first part of
oh,
Dalek's
Brett was
master
good.
plan.
Yeah, where did I
Yeah.
get? Oh, it was because it tied in. He tied in with that.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
yeah. But even like Mission to the Unknown on its own, fucking
Mm.
phenomenal,
Mm.
brilliant. Um, so I'm really glad we did them, but it was really difficult. And would I go back and rewatch them again? Probably not. Like, obviously, some of them now have been animated, so they're easier to watch. And I've gotten a number of the animations now that they've been released and stuff.
Mm.
But a lot of the other ones I probably wouldn't go back and rewatch. What I would probably do, because of the way we do the podcast and because of the way that we focus on the characters and whatever, would I go back and read the books? Yes. Would I go back and maybe
Mm.
try and get like the narrated version of the novel because I'm a more of an audio book person? Yes. Yes, I definitely would. Would I have
Mm.
done that before we started doing the podcast? No, I wouldn't bother. I'd just skip them and move on. So, in a roundabout way, it was really
Mm.
challenging. It was at times incredibly difficult to do, and I know there was some episodes that we really struggled with even having a proper conversation on it because, you know, all credit to this canon, they're fucking fantastic, but like, it's really difficult to watch. And to absorb what's
Mm.
happening when you're trying to read the fucking description and listen and watch what they're doing with the screenshots or whatever. But I am really, really glad we did it because we would have missed,
Mm.
pardon me, we would have missed some amazing stories. And the first big sort of uh, disagreement that you and I had on someone being a companion versus a villain in the form of Marco Polo.
Yeah. 4 stories in.
Which actually I think was a good challenge for us though in doing the podcast by having that massive difference of opinion. So yeah, challenging.
Yeah.
Would I do it again? Maybe not. But I'm glad we did it. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Do you have another question for me?
Yeah, so I know what your second question for me is, so I'll leave that as my related one is the last question I have here. So interesting question, right? Fandom smash up. Smash up is a great game you love, right?
Yes, I
Fandom
do love
smash up.
Smash Up.
Star Wars, Star Trek,
Mm.
Doctor Who.
Mm.
Who's your doctor? Who's
Mm-hmm.
your companion? And who's your villain or villains?
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
because we're doing like potentially plucking characters from other shows and making them the doctor, you can have like Janeway is the doctor. So a lot of the morals that Janeway would have, but she's the doctor, if that makes sense.
All right, so maybe just as an aside, automatically I want Q versus the First Doctor.
Okay, so we have First Doctor
Yeah.
versus Q. And who's your companion so from Star Wars?
Right. So my companion from Star Wars. Now it's tricky. Uh,
Also, I'm challenging all of our listeners to do this as well.
hmm.
So, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Doctor, companion, villain.
See, this is the thing. Like, whereas like a Star Wars character as a companion is kind of tough. Um,
I came up with the best one just for the for the two that you put in. Fucking brilliant.
yeah. Okay. Uh, okay. I need someone that can play off the First Doctor and really play off against Q as well.
Do you want me to tell you who immediately came to my head?
Yeah. Okay. You tell me who.
Maz Kanata.
Yeah. that is a good. Yeah, just two old farts and Q. uh, keeping with, and like this might seem like a bit of a cheat now, to be fair, but keeping with an aesthetic of a really good, solid Doctor Companion relationship that we've discussed at length, probably Leia. Leia as the companion to the First Doctor, and Q as the villain.
Since we're doing Leia, we will add an addendum. New Hope, Empire, Jedi, or sequel trilogy. Because there is a bit of a difference between Leia and the first three.
Well, that's part of the character growth of all of the three main heroes across.
Yeah, but if you were to pluck her out of the point,
if I'm to pluck her out of a time stream, I'm probably going to take her from Empire because that is, and again, if we're taking Rogue One into account for this particular character arc, sorry, Paul is loving this, by the way. If we're taking Rogue One into account for this, which I think is and I've said it to himself, and I've said to you repeatedly, A New Hope has a much deeper impact because of Rogue One.
Yeah, I would agree.
It has a much deeper impact, and it resonates a lot more. And again, that building into Empire Strikes Back, the impact is fucking a lot more. So I think Rogue One is probably the best thing to happen to the original trilogy in a long time. But yeah, I take her from Empire because she is in a scenario where it's not like the princess that needs that rescues herself essentially type thing. So there's maybe a little bit of that. I won't say naivety, but there's a bit of a real world thrown at her, so she has that real world experience. Then being so heavily involved in the Rebel Alliance, she's had just this like grit and determination grow. Like the stuff that she already had, it's now multiplied because of her experiences. So if you take that character out from Empire and put her along with the First Doctor, you've got a softness that the two of them can get on really well with, and a defiance that she can stand up to him when she objects to his course of action, or vice versa. So if you take Barbara's experiences from the Aztecs to Dalek invasion of Earth to even the Web Planet, if you take all that life experience from Barbara and you put it, you can compare it to Leia, I think. So yeah,
I forgot there was another Leia option. It's obviously not an option you would have picked.
Yeah,
there was another Leia option. Which
well,
is
to
Obi-Wan
be fair,
Kenobi Leia.
Yeah, to be fair, like, there is a lot of running, and she seems to be great at fucking dodging, like, people.
And she's sassy as fuck.
Yeah, she's incredibly sassy as fuck. So yeah, that's my fandom smash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But like, come on, you saw well how fucking Q, like John Delancey acted off Patrick Stewart, who like in season one is very reminiscent of early Doctor. Yeah, so like, yeah, like that fucking character chemistry. I think you can easily recreate that with the first Doctor and Q.
Who came to my mind
Mm-hmm.
was Doc Tom,
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Kira,
Oh,
um, and then doing a villain from Star Wars is a little bit more difficult, just because like the main Star Wars villain is obviously um, just the Empire.
yeah.
But like the Fourth Doctor and Colonel Kira trying to take down Jabba is a story I would like to see.
Just because, again, like keeping in with an aesthetic, like while Jabba is like that would make for hilarity. I think, and for like an aesthetic type thing, like Krennic from Rogue One, because he's very like a gull, like a Cardassian gull.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the reason why I think the base was good, like to go after like a mob, like
Yeah,
the Fourth Doctor and Colonel Kira trying to take down the mob.
yeah.
Except the
That
mob is made up of slugs and pigmen. Like it's just, I don't
oh,
know why it just entered my head, and I love
that
cool.
would be cool. No,
Cool.
and Kira could distract Jabba and his mob by just singing "You Give Me Fever."
She could. She
Yeah.
could indeed. She could indeed.
Mm.
But also, I'm thinking like, like Kira is a little bit quick to anger,
Oh yeah.
a bit quick to violence at times.
Mm.
And we saw how Doc Tom was with Leela, but like you could hardly call Kira a savage.
No, but
So I think
see
it'd
the
be
thing.
interesting to see how he would, relate with someone who's more advanced technologically.
I give it halfway through the first episode before she just fucking pucks him. like just like proper, like, right across the jaw. That's a good
Okay,
question. Yeah.
back to you.
Um. All right. This one just kind of came to me there, and I think we might be able to. We can then come around to like our sort of joint question.
Mm.
Of all the Doctors you've seen, no, because we won't take into account the ones that we've reviewed, just the only ones that we've reviewed, but all the Doctors that you've seen for the entirety of their runs now as well, mind you, because you kind of dipped in and out of some people. If you were to pair one Doctor off against an evil version of one of the other incarnations, who would it be?
I'm going to include Sylvester in this.
Yeah.
Only because I've seen the majority of his.
You have seen.
I just haven't watched like the first like 3 or 4, I think.
So I think with the Sylvester you've watched what is like called like the Cartmel plan, which we'll get to like down the line. But that's like where the real solid foundation of Sylvester's character starts to come.
So I'm going to include Sylvester as someone I've watched because I think it would. I would actually. This isn't just a dig at a certain somebody. I think it would be interesting to put Bill Hartnell up against an evil version of Peter Capaldi.
Yep. No.
Because Peter's Doctor starts out in many ways kind of similar to Bill in the sense that he's not all fucking lovey-dovey. No. But he gets there eventually. But like imagine the whole thing with Clara. Not to give away too many words, but imagine the whole thing with Clara went a different way. His reaction to that went a different way. So as opposed to the Peter Capaldi that we get with Bill Potts, we instead have him flipping over the other way. I think that would be interesting to have the young, impish First Doctor encounter this version of his future self and try to, like, is it going to be a case of try to outwit him, try to help him see the truth of the situation or whatever. But I think if you take the growth that Doc Bill had and then you put him in place with someone who had a very bad reaction to a very personal experience, could he help him and turn him back around? That
No.
I think would be interesting. And it isn't just a dig because I've gone on and on about how I fucking hate what Moffat did to Phil Hartnell. But I do think a showdown between those two would actually be probably the most interesting for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty cool. No, I like that.
Cool. So then we have our kind of joint question where you phrased yours slightly differently.
Yeah.
So the way I phrase mine is what has been the highlight of the podcasting experience for you.
Okay.
And you phrase yours as...
Oh, sorry. I zoned out. Yeah, I just zoned out there. Thanks very much. See, this is what I have to put up with. I had phrased it as, what has been your favorite part of doing the podcast? So, question for you, just for clarification. When you say, what is the highlight of the podcasting experience, do you just mean podcasting in general or this particular podcast?
Either or.
All right.
I wanted to encompass podcasting in general, just in case you had a more definitive answer to that.
Well, outside of having like a regular occurrence to see you,
virtually,
yeah, virtually, yeah. My favorite part of this podcast experience has been, again, and I've said it multiple times, and it still is my favorite part, is watching your journey. Yeah, because, like, my mentality towards fandoms has changed a lot over the last 10 years. Because, like, with the rise of social media, I've seen, like, I suppose, like, I've seen a sort of reflection, and I didn't like it, and I don't like it, and I just realized that people say stuff about the things that I like, and they say it in such a way that I don't like it. It annoys me, it upsets me, it angers me, and then I realize that going, I've probably made similar statements, and it's had the same reaction to someone else. I don't want to be that person. I would rather express my negative opinions about something as positively as I possibly can, you know? And I think this has allowed me to kind of do that. But one of the mentality I had was that, like, you can't comment on something unless you've seen it all, unless you've seen every facet of it. And as I got on, I was going, like, not everyone, for whatever reason, can get into things the same way that I've been able to get into it. Like, I am, like, some people would say, like, I'm an old soul because I love lots of TV shows and movies from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and so on. It's just because of, like, the stuff that I was exposed to when I was growing up. Like, one of my favorite movies of all time is a 1933 comedy. Like, so that type of experience. So, like, not everyone's going to be able to, like, go back and watch Classic Who because, like, they're just onto black and white, or the story pace just isn't for them. And look, that's, the older I got, the more I realized that that's fucking perfectly fine, because there's been stuff that apparently, like, everyone that loves a certain thing should be really into. And I'm like, it's not for me. Like, I don't like it. So whatever I had said is that might have hurt people. I was like, going, I don't want to continue to fucking do that. I want to be able to express my opinion, but I want to be able to do it in a way which is like, this is just my opinion. And I think we've kind of done that. Like, we're constantly inviting feedback on whatever we're saying. But back to the point. You, who we've always had this shared interest in Doctor Who, but you haven't seen as much of it as I have. And for you to go all the way back to the start and as I said, discover a new love of the First Doctor, get a much wider experience of the Third Doctor, who you would experience through one companion, two companions.
Yeah.
But that was the alpha and omega of their run. You didn't see the rest of the alphabet, and like watching you go through that, watching you go through Patrick Troughton's run, someone that is generally revered as the person that solidified Doctor Who as a staple. Your experience with that, and then going through Tom and the roller coaster that you're having with that. I'm looking forward to getting to Peter Davis and Colin Baker discussing Sylvester. Then
which
we've
tried to limit how much we've been discussing Sylvester, just because I watched it while we were doing the podcast, and we've tried not to talk about it too much.
Yeah, exactly. And then coming all the way up into the new stuff, like having actual conversations surrounding Christopher Eccleston's run, because I think that's one thing that we've rarely done. Yeah,
we've talked about someone else in that run, but we don't talk about Christopher.
Yeah, we've talked about Tennant, to the cows come home. I'm looking forward to having a reevaluation of Matt Smith's run, because part of that, Mirror Darkly type fucking phase, I held it against Matt Smith, who I have come to realize and appreciate is a fucking fantastic actor. Like, I've seen him in a few things now that he's absolutely amazing in. So yeah, I've done a twofer. My highlight has been a self-reflection and also watching your journey.
Yay, I've been the highlight of your podcasting experience.
Yes.
So what has been my favorite part of the podcast? So obviously there is the fact that throughout COVID and the fact that we both have full-time jobs, we're very busy, you moved far away and you don't drive.
Yet. I'm working on it.
Having this sort of weekly, originally it was bi-weekly, but having this weekly check-in where, like, we've commented before that we do chat a lot before we hit the record button. No, Paul, we're not going to record all of it for you. Sorry, this is your Christmas gift, Paul. Hope you enjoy it.
Paul has made it like a Christmas request that we start up a Patreon so he can listen to us chat shit before we go on there. But Paul I think, when it comes to our podcast, Paul is the living embodiment of shut up and take my money.
What was I going to say? Yeah, so no, like having a point in my week where I know I'm going to sit down and have a chat with you. And yeah, like we talk about what stuff we watched this week. We talked about work, because you now work with the same company that I do. We talk about personal stuff and family and Christmas and birthdays and weddings and this thing and that thing. That's been great just to have that sort of in our calendar.
Yeah.
In terms of the podcast in general, though, not specifically the fact that you and I are doing a thing, because we could do this doing anything. We could do this playing board games or whatever. But specifically the podcast, I think for me, like, you touched on a point where you and I often view, or used to view, fandom very differently. I remember you doing it with Star Trek. I remember you doing it with Doctor Who, where the dude had fucking schedules of, like, if I watch every episode, blah 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 blah, I'll get it all done by this date, and whatever. Right? He had fucking schedules. Is it also the same person who has schedules for how he reads books?
I still do that.
Yes, I know. But when I first met you, also did it then.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I considered myself a Doctor Who fan because I liked Doctor Who. Did I watch all of it? No. I didn't have a particular interest in watching it. I remember way back when we were on Dan and Paul's podcast, Half Measures. We've mentioned it several times already. Again, go listen to it if you're not already. They had us on their show and they asked the question of, like, if we were to get someone into Doctor Who, how would we do it? And I said that my entryway into Doctor Who was through companions. So I watched companions that I liked. And the first companion was Sarah Jane and so on and so forth. But what doing the podcast allowed me to do is find other companions I fucking like. Leela, for example, I fucking loved talking about Leela. Um, Joe, I get very fucking defensive over because she was treated like shit. Um, but for me, it was more a case of a looking at it in a more critical lens and looking at the Doctor, particularly because, like you say, going back to the beginning, I'd watched the first 16 stories. I
Mm.
watched those years ago, but I watched them for Ian and Barbara. I didn't watch them for Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Bill just happened to be there. Whereas going back and watching it and discovering this love for the first Doctor, which we've talked about ad nauseum,
Mm.
but like I didn't see him that way when we were. No, I wouldn't have ragged on him. I still thought that the portrayal in um, Twice My Time was crap before I'd even gone back to do the podcast. Like, we agreed that at the time. But getting to see that has been really, really good. Like I never watched any of Patrick Troughton. Getting to watch that and stuff, it's been really enjoyable. It's also like having an excuse to watch it. You know, it's like, oh, sorry, I can't do this thing because I have to watch Doctor Who tonight. No, I have to because I'll be letting down Paddy if I don't. So I have to watch it. um, has been really fun, but I think for me it's been discovering characters that I had overlooked in the past. Again, I've said it the last couple of weeks. I'll say it again. I had the chance to meet Louise Jameson. My very first Doctor Who, my very first convention I ever went to, I had a chance to meet her, and I didn't because I hadn't watched her stuff, and she wasn't Sarah Jane, so or she wasn't Miss Layton, so I didn't bother. And now, having watched her stuff, I'm fucking kicking myself that I didn't do that. Um, is that going to change the way I am as a fan, though? No. Like,
No.
we're watching every episode of Doctor Who, that's a choice. But with other things that I like, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I've watched maybe 15 episodes of Voyager all in. I stopped watching Enterprise after the Zindi. I haven't seen the animated series. I have no particular desire to go back and watch it. Like, there's bits I don't watch. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Weirdly enough, and don't come at me, anyone listening, I have no big interest in animated Star Wars. I haven't watched the Clone Wars. I've watched 2 episodes of Rebels, I think. I just don't have an interest in that.
Mm.
But I used to read all the Legends books when I was younger. I've seen all the movies. I've watched all the live action shows. So in a completely roundabout way, the way I see fandom isn't changing, and the way I see like you can be a fan having just watched
Mm.
whatever. It's like um it's like the Stranger Things thing, right?
Mm.
You can be a fan of a band when you've only heard one song in one show.
Mm.
That still counts as you being a fan. If you like that song because it's in that show, you
Mm.
still count as a fan of that band.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. But for me, particularly with Doctor Who, I think because Doctor Who has such a long running history, there was a lot that I skipped because I didn't think I'd like the characters. And it turns out I actually did.
Mm.
It was a very long winded answer, which is essentially the same answer as yours.
Yeah.
But
No, I had one instance that I think for a good period of time really, like it triggered the reaction I had,
mm,
which was when I was in college. I was part of the Sci-Fi Society,
mm,
and we wanted to do, like, in conjunction with the Film Society, who, like, there seemed to be like this just unnecessary rivalry with. We wanted to do a Doctor Who week,
mm,
so we said, right, one showing per night, pick a story from each Doctor.
mm,
So we said, like, we'll mix it up, So we were doing it around, and there was one person there that said, like, oh, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Can I sit in on the meeting? I was like, oh, yeah, sure, come on way in. So his pitch was, let's just watch Matt Smith's season. and it was Matt Smith's first season.
Yeah, it was.
And I was like, man, like the show was nearly, at that stage, it was like, what are we going to say, 46-ish? 46. I said the show is like over 45 years old. Like, there's a lot of great stuff there. And they were like, yeah, but no, like, some of it like looks terrible. I'm like, but like, have you watched it? And he was like, no, but it just looks terrible. And that just fucking, I went ballistic. I said, look, sit down and no.
Yeah, I do remember this person.
Yeah, and like, my whole thing was that, like, okay, if you have tried it and you don't, no, I'm okay. Like you said there, you're not particularly into animated Star Wars. My mentality has shifted to the stage of give it a bash because I think you'll like aspects of it.
Mm.
But if you don't want to, perfectly fine. If you do and it's still not for you, that's perfectly fine. But I'll always just say give something a bash. I no longer feel the need to say you need to watch it.
Mm.
And like back then, like, just when your man said that, like, oh, it just looks terrible because it just looks terrible. It's like, you haven't sat down, you haven't watched it, you haven't like at least attempted to grasp the characters or like understand. Like, you just see some of what they were able to do despite the limitations of their budgets. Like, and we've talked about it. Like, some of the writing is so good you don't pay attention to the wonky sets or the guys holding up the fucking backgrounds. Like, and for those interested, we ended up picking episode 1 of An Unearthly Child, and followed by The Aztecs. We did The Last of the Time Lords, which is David Tennant's second season 3-part finale. We did Genesis, which was, and then we did the Matt Smith 2-part story with the Weeping Angels, and then for the
we did Blink as well.
Oh yeah, because we did Blink as part of that to give an introduction as to what the Weeping Angels were. And then for the 5th day, we did.
Did we not just have the quiz on the 5th day?
No, we had the quiz the same night as the Weeping. No, we had to do the quiz a different day because the old bar fucked us over. What did we do on the 5th day? On the 5th day, we watched something else. I think it might have been. I honestly can't remember.
Neither can I.
No, we did something, but we did it during the day. But yeah, but like so. That was like back in, as I said, like 2010, and then for like 3 or 4 years, or even like 3 or 4 years, like my whole thing was like that. I hated that whole thing of like, oh, it just looks bad. I'm like going no, and then it was the whole thing you have to watch absolutely single aspect of it. And I was like, right, I remember watching every single aspect of it, and I'm like, yeah, some of that stuff is absolutely fucking naff. I know, but it's just like again,
look
like
at you, gunfighters, you piece of shit.
Yeah. But no, like I was just like as I said, like I saw that like reflection. I was like, going, Christ Almighty! Like no, I don't want to make anyone fucking feel bad with my opinion, So yeah, just be nice, people. Yeah. Cool. So what's next on the questionnaire agenda?
So next on the questionnaire agenda was something we've kind of been talking about a little bit in every podcast, to be honest, but a little bit recently. Companion rankings and Doctor rankings. Now, what I'm going to say is, for companion rankings, I think we should do top 5, bottom 3.
Okay.
I'm not going to the effort of ranking all of them.
Right.
Top 5, bottom 3. And then we have Doctor rankings of 4, 3, 2, 1 in whatever order they go. So you can go first.
Okay. So bottom 3 are in with a bullet was Stephen. Stephen is my least favorite companion thus far, and I've talked about him multiple times. And yeah, like, Stephen is like he comes across as that guy in any sort of like RPG group. And I've said it before. I think I said it to you. I said it to other people as well. Is that if Stephen Moffat was trying to get a point across with his representation of the First Doctor, it should have. If you're trying to get that point across, have it be the First Doctor and a companion that represents those aspects that you're trying to give out about, which would have been Stephen. Next is Dodo. because
Mm.
God love her, she just wasn't given a chance.
Yeah.
She wasn't. Then is Victoria,
Mm.
because like we ranked Victoria like 6-1, you know.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. She had, wait, did she have 5 stories, 7 stories, or 6 stories? She had she had 7 stories. So we did like Leela, there was one
Mm.
kind of on the wayside. Um, but like there was just so much missed opportunities surrounding Victoria,
Mm.
and the one defining thing about her character for me was that she humanized the life of a companion in the
Mm.
TARDIS. In Fury the Deep, it's a very emotional departure because of what it represents. It's like it's not all fun and games. Like I'm sick and tired of being cold and chased and constantly afraid I'm going to be killed by something.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like when you play, like we talk, like, you and I, we love doing RPs. We love role
Mm.
playing games. It's like, yeah, this is absolutely cool. Guarantee you, if we were thrown into that fucking scenario, we'd shit a brick. It's like, yeah, no. So like, I so much potential there, and
Mm.
unfortunately, her to me, her legacy is that defining explanation as to like, the life of a companion. So yeah,
Mm.
they're my bottom three.
Okay. My bottom three.
Mm.
At the bottom, Stephen.
Yes.
And again, this is no slight on Peter Purvis, who I'm sure is lovely.
No,
Sure, he's
Peter.
lovely. He comes across as a really nice guy.
Mhm.
The character of Stephen, particularly when you consider the fact that like he came after Ian, and you're like, what the fuck?
I think Peter Purvis unfortunately sometimes gets done dirty by interviews and things that he's asked to take part of, because
Mm.
I remember excuse me, UK TV Gold to Doctor Who at 40,
Yeah.
and they were discussing about Bill Hartnell, and they had cut Peter Purvis's comments in such a way that it sounded like he was disparaging Bill. It's like he was like he wasn't well, so he wasn't really the best. I think it was you made it look like you made him look like an inconsiderate asshole, where
Mm.
he was actually a deeply concerned person.
Yeah.
And even
And like
now,
he's done the behind the sofa for um Leela's. He did the behind the sofa for like Horror Fang Rock and all those.
yeah,
And it was him and Sophie Aldred.
mm.
And he seems really nice. Like the show had evolved obviously considerably from what he had done, but he seemed really nice. Like, I hate sometimes I hate the fact that we rag on Stephen so much because I feel kind of bad for Purvis, who I'd really love to meet in person. Do you know what I mean?
I've actually seen some things now. I know that we generally don't bring this side of Doctor Who into the discussion of the podcast, but in specifically the last 3 years, there has been this rising agenda against Doctor Who. And Peter, who has voiced traditional opinions about the show before, he has voiced his opinions, and like he's entitled to his opinion, has been brought on as a talking head onto, like, I won't voice the name of the station because I'm not going to give them that kind of leeway. But he's been brought onto various media outlets that are against anything to do with the left or anything to do with diversity or anything like that. He's been brought on as a talking head, and they have fucked up royal by letting him speak because he actively speaks against what they're trying to promote. They brought him on to talk about Jodie's run, to disparage his run, and he did nothing but attempt to, her run. My apologies. There's just so many, like, because I keep saying he did, like, he lauded her performance, he lauded the direction they were taking. He just had an issue with the quality of the material that she was working with. That's entirely his subjective opinion. Absolutely. They wanted him to go, oh, it's woke, it's whatever. It's like going, it wasn't, and they had to hush him up really quickly because he was damaging their argument. And I love, and like that's why I was like going, whatever issue I have with Steven Taylor, not Tyler, voice of an angel, whatever issue I have with Steven Taylor, I do not have that same issue with Peter Purvis.
Yeah. So, bottom of the pack, Stephen.
Mm.
Second from the bottom, purely because I didn't connect with her and we didn't get to see a whole lot of her, is Katarina.
I thought we weren't considering Katarina to be a companion.
Well, people do and people don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, are we considering Katarina? Like,
well, see, this is the thing now, right? Is that people consider,
if people consider Sarah Kingdom,
yes. Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. It's people like, but we've had the whole justice for Brett type thing. And
yeah,
it's
which,
like,
which I would also, if we're considering them, I am also considering Brett.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Because I think your whole point of the time was
because those three go together.
Yeah, but I think because like you were saying that, well, if Brett can't be considered a companion, then Katarina can't be considered a companion because they did the exact same amount of stuff. Yeah, well, I see. I didn't count Katarina or Sarah Kingdom as part of my thing.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So I put Katarina next just because she didn't get to do much. I would then agree with you on Dodo. Mm-hmm. I think Dodo was massively underutilized for really shitty reasons. Like, the Dodo that we see at the end of the massacre is a bit mouthy. You know, she seems like she'd be an interesting, like, mix it up like the boys' club that is the TARDIS of whatever. And they don't let her run with it. Rather, they made her change her accent. Things like that. I think she was really hard done by. I will do another one since we're saying Katarina is a maybe hit or miss. I would probably have to go with Ben. I suppose. I think I like Victoria. I think I find Victoria a more interesting character than Ben. Mm-hmm. Ben had the really interesting, really good development in 10th Planet. I still think that's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But he didn't really do much after that.
He became like sort of this sort of like frenemies type thing with Jamie.
Yeah, and no, I don't need that. Do you know, I don't need that. So I would actually put Ben next.
And sorry, speaking of Ben, I think he is a good example of the loss that we have with the last episodes, because I would love to see Michael Craze's acting in the Macro Terror when he's under hypnosis.
Me too. Totally agree. So, those are my bottom 3/4 for including Katarina. Mm-hmm. So Stephen, Dodo, Ben, and you had Stephen, Dodo,
Victoria.
Go. Now we have our top 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Cool.
Go.
All right. So this was tough. Like my top 3, they're my top 3. My 4, my 5 were fucking tough. Because like reevaluating certain characters and then placing them in their hierarchy and going back and forth. So for number 5, I settled on Liz. And even now I'm not sure, because I've been flip-flopping all day with the person that potentially was 5 at one point, which was Joe. And like I'm trying to like weigh up all the fucking pros and cons, and it's like you're seeing development and you're seeing regression, and it's like seesaws and short amount of time and everything, and it's like, Christ almighty, if it had just been my top 4, it would have been so much easier. And even now I'm fucking changing my mind.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Because I have my list, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, 3, 2, 1 hasn't really changed all that much. Mm-hmm. 5, I have Leela. Mm-hmm. 4, I have Liz Shaw. 3, I have Ian. Mm-hmm. 2, I have Barbara. And 1, I have Sargent. Leela was a surprise. 110%. I was surprised how defensive I got of her. I was surprised how much I liked her, to be perfectly frank. The only story of hers I'd watched prior to doing the podcast was The Invisible Enemy, which we've agreed wasn't her best showing.
No.
Wasn't her worst, in my opinion. wasn't her best. And the main reason I watched that story when I got it was for the tin dog.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember much of Leela. I just remembered K9. So Leela was a bit of a shocker for me. Like when we got to the end of her, I was like, yeah, of the companions we've seen, she's in this high spot. Liz Shaw, I will defend till the end of my days because she's fucking amazing and she got royally shafted. Now I know Caroline John wouldn't be able to continue because she was pregnant and whatever, but she got royally shafted.
Mm.
Like the character did, and I don't care. Big Finish has solved a lot of things. She's fantastic. She's lovely. Ian is my favorite Doctor Who boy. Like I can't not like. He's Ian. You know, he's Ian. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
Barbara is, I think, in reality, Barbara is probably who I would want to be most like as a companion. Because I know if I became a companion, like Barbara's first like two stories, she's scared fucking shitless.
Mm.
Scared shitless. As anyone would be. And like we say that like herself and Ian don't get the best character development in comparison to like future characters. But in terms of the women on the show, she's the most real.
Mm.
Her reactions to things are very real and very fucking relatable. And then we have Sarah Jane, who I will love till the end of my days, and I we're open to change. We're open to change. I'm open to having my opinion on her changed. Do I think anyone is ever going to knock her off that top spot? It is really, really going to be hard. Because when we were coming up with this list, I had to challenge myself of based on Time Warrior to Hand of Fear.
Mm-hmm.
Not future stuff. Time Warrior to Hand of Fear. And she is still my favourite in Time Warrior to Hand of Fear. So
Yeah.
yeah. So has this helped you in any way?
It has, and it's a photo finish, you know, with the whole, you know, first, second, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So in fifth place, it's Liz, because I loved Liz's interactions with both the Doctor and the Brig, because there is a quote that you and I break out. We haven't brought it out now in a while, but we used to break out every so often, just as a bit of a giggle, from the film MASH. Was it? Yeah, that one, the sultry bitch with the fire in her eyes. And that is
Liz in space.
That is Liz in space, that sultry bitch with the fire in her eyes, because we talked, like, okay, we mentioned before about Leela's character design. It's meant to draw the eye, but it doesn't. In a weird inverse, the first thing that you're drawn to towards Liz Shaw is her eyes. They're fucking, they flash with this defiance and sultriness and suaveness and charisma and intelligence, and it's just, you're fucking drawn to her eyes. That's what it is. And then the character comes out, and
then the white go-go boots come out.
Yes, and then the white go-go boots come out. But before the white go-go boots, everything that you see in those eyes is backed up by what comes out of her mouth. And like, ranking her stories for the season, we had 4 stories to pick from. And to the wire of when we started recording, you and I were both flip-flopping as to what they were going to be. Because, like, with Inferno, we were trying to figure out, like, is it a great Liz Shaw performance, or is it a great Caroline John performance? You know, it's fucking tough, you know? But to help herald in a new era, Liz was a great companion, I thought.
I agree.
And I would definitely love to have seen more of her. And even her, even her off-screen reason for leaving,
Mm.
you can see the scene in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, so perfect. We both agree that she's secretly Doris.
Yes. Yes.
Number 4 is Leela. Because once upon a time, in terms of the classic companion ranking, this could have been Jamie.
Mm.
But you compare Leela to Jamie, and they have very similar things. They are a companion from... They are a non-contemporary companion,
Yes.
brought into a world that is very alien to them.
Mm.
And then you watch how they go. Jamie doesn't change, unfortunately. Jamie is a very good companion, and he's in my top 10 he's in my top 10 companions at the moment.
Mm.
Yeah,
I agree.
He's a very good companion, and there's a lot about Jamie that I love. There's a lot about
Fraser was very nice to you in your video.
He was. I loved it. Thank you very much. There's a lot I love about Jamie, and there is some that I don't like about Jamie.
Mm.
Mainly, I think his tendency, to be like part of like the lads club with Dot Pat. What I loved about Leela though was we saw so much character growth. We saw so much development. We were down the line in the same mindset on her top performances. And those performances were fantastic because we got to see this amazing character growth. Even in stories that we were in disagreement on in nature of the full story, we were in full agreement with Leela on our thoughts on Leela. So, yeah, she's vaulted into the number 4 position.
Okay.
Ian, my first love. Yeah, so my love for Ian is so much that for a birthday present, Trish bought me The Adventures of Sir Lancelot on DVD just because it starred William Russell.
It's brilliant, by the way.
It is amazing.
Would recommend.
Yeah, I have to rewatch it again. It's on one of my schedules.
Also, I years ago sat down one Christmas to watch The Great Escape, which is a film I've never had an interest in, purely because he's in it.
Yep,
he's in it for like, in a grand total, he's in it for about 10 minutes. Let's be honest.
He plays the character Soren, who is so the escape committee is called the X organization, and he is Soren. He's in charge of the security system. So basically, whenever the German guards are getting close to any of the tunnels or any of the chicanery, he has set up like the warning systems and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And also,
I sat through that entire film just for him.
He's also one of my oddly favorite scenes, which is like when they're doing the escape stuff. James Coburn's character is trying to get like this big trunk down into the escape tunnel, and he just sits there taking over like this exasperated Ian voice. He goes, "You'll never get that thing through." But yeah, no, it's just I love Ian. Ian is such a joy to watch because he is an imperfect character. He really is. But that's what makes him perfect, because he is imperfect. I think if that makes waxing lyrically, waxing philosophical.
Also, he's a bronze Adonis apparently.
Yeah, he's a bronze Adonis, and yeah, don't forget. I don't think I've forgotten. Don't think I've forgotten those comments. But like, there was just so much about him from the start. His rapport with the Doctor is great. Like, while yes, it's an overly long story and it's good, but it's not great. His speech about the morality of forcing the Thals to go to war is great. It's one of the, I think, all-time classic Doctor Who speeches. And then as it goes on, like, just those 16 stories have a place in my heart for a reason. And, well, 3 reasons specifically. And one of them is Ian. Another one of those reasons is my number 2 pick, which is Barbara. Yeah. I'm not going to lie, I had to think really long and hard about whether or not Barbara would take the top spot. Because I've always loved Barbara, but I always lumped her in with Ian as a duo.
Yeah. And we talked about this.
Yeah, and this go around, They're they are unique individuals.
Mm.
Whenever someone talks about the portrayal of classic companions, I don't hold up Sarah Jane. I hold up
Mm.
Barbara.
Mm.
I do. I going, look at what this woman did. She she impersonated a god because of what people have called the white savior complex.
Mm.
Like, that's a discussion
Well,
that can be,
well intentioned white savior
yeah,
complex.
yeah, well intentioned. Like, and it's like, while okay, yeah, it's still that side of things. You understand where she's coming from.
Mm.
It may, and like we like that story is just that it's such a multifaceted story. It's so good, but she impersonates a god. She does her best fucking Ellen Ripley, you know, driving through the truck stuff. She puts up with so much shit from unwanted attention,
Mm.
to the extent of like where you were kind of going, this is starting to piss me off.
Mm.
And it's like just the whole thing, the whole way along. There's never a dull moment with her.
I think one of my favorite scenes looking back on Barbara, because there's so many, like the entirety of the Romans, the entirety of the Aztecs, but is in Dalek Invasion of Earth. When herself and the stupid Gowley one that she was stuck with,
Jenny,
yeah, when she's like, I'll tell you their plans, and she starts rattling off military plans from history to the Daleks.
yeah,
And then finally just runs over and just impersonates the Dalek voice into the thing. It's brilliant. It's so good. So good.
And like another part that I like, and we had I think we had, yeah, no, we had a disagreement about what actually happens at the end of it, but I think we both agreed on that the scene itself was beautiful. Was herself and the Doctor's conversation in the Edge of Destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is what started the cementing of that relationship for me.
Yes.
So as I said, yeah, like whenever someone like wants to rag on the depiction of classic companions or the depiction of women, you know, in that era, I'm like, 1963, here she is.
Yeah.
You know, take your best shot. But the reason that Sarah Jane comes in top form for me is because it's, outside of being a great character, you know, but again, like the other two, imperfect.
Oh yeah.
But what I love about Sarah Jane is that it is a reflection of what it's like to be with your best friend. Like what it's like to travel with your best friend, go through all these dangers together with your best friend. And that's what the thing with Sarah Jane is, I think, to me, has always been, is that like the best friend. Now, it is replicated, I want to say, to give it its due, it's replicated 2 more times, I think. One possibly being Rose, which we will have to see again.
Yeah.
But the second
Ten
time
and
being,
Donna.
yeah, Ten and Donna. That is like it is the best friends traveling together.
Yeah.
And that's why when we eventually kind of maybe get to that stage, you'll see Donna appearing in a very high position on the list. But I think that's what I love about Sarah Jane, is that it's like being with your best friend, but then obviously her own aspects of her solo parts of the story are always engaging to watch as well. And I think, yeah, if people want to hold up, you know, that she screams and she's captured and she's blah 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 blah, like one story which isn't great, we've agreed upon it isn't great, but there's a fantastic scene with her in it, is Seeds, where herself and, I can't remember the character's name, but Boise,
yeah.
he could snap and like shoot her or kill her or whatever, and she's just like, you're pathetic. And it's like, you're dealing with a man that's on very unstable ground at the moment, and this is the course of action you're choosing to pick. It's a very Doctor thing to do.
You also have like stories like Android Invasion, another one that's kind of meh, you know, whatever. she saves the Doctor saves her, she saves the Doctor. It's a very back and forth with them. Um, it's interesting that you say like that, like, it's the best friend dynamic because, people who've seen the logo for our podcast may notice that you and I are modeled after
Yes.
Doc Tom and Sarah.
Yeah.
Which leads us into our Doctor rankings, which
Yes.
is interesting.
Mm.
Maybe, possibly, kind of. So why don't you go first this time?
All right. So now the other thing to kind of, I suppose, bear in mind is that we're only halfway through a run
Yes.
while we're talking about this.
So big, giant asterisks.
Yes, big giant
on
asterisk.
Tom's placements, whatever it is.
Yeah. So from lowest to highest, I have from a ranking of 4. At number 4, it's the second Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love Patrick Troughton. I really do. He is a phenomenal actor, and I have watched him in so many things, and I will always watch him in anything that he appears in because he is that damn good. His portrayal of the Doctor, though, is that of I won't call him an outright narcissist, but there is a level of unhealthy ego there that is hand in hand with a petulant, childlike behavior, and I don't like it because you choose to do something and not tell anyone. When it backfires because of that, you have no right to give out to someone about it.
That particular story really got in your craw, didn't it? The ending of that story really got in your craw.
It really, really fucking did. Like, because I was like, if I don't know, you cannot hold me accountable for the actions that I take. It's like, it's not fair. Or at least if you're going to hold me accountable for my actions, take into account what you did to lead to those actions. But outside of that as well, like, there is, I think definitely himself and Tom have something in common, which is a slight manipulation of their companions. And then there is actually 2 and 4 are very kind of similar in that regards. I think they portray those negative aspects, which is that level of egotism, which I have to be the smartest person, and we're seeing that now with 4 and K9. So like, it's kind of analogous to 2 and Zoe. So there are moments that I know there are moments that I adore in Patrick's run. I will always say that there are moments that I adore, but at the moment he is on the bottom rung of this very short step ladder for me. And like, one of those moments, it's got nothing to do with even a scene of him. It's Web of Fear, episode 6. They're in the tube station under guard by the Yeti, and he starts playing the Skyboat song on his recorder. I love that sequence. I love it. And I love the fact that it was acknowledged in Power of the Doctor Just Gone. Love that. In the tree spot, it's a palindrome. Tree is in tree. Once upon a time, he would have been my second favorite Doctor. Unfortunately, there is an awful lot of John Pertwee in the third Doctor, and I think that he loses sight of that self because the James Bond Doctor doesn't fully work, I don't think. I love the caring, compassionate side of I love the caring, compassionate side of the third Doctor. I love the action man side of the Doctor. I'm not a big fan of the fucking gadgets doohickeys and the old boy nature of the third Doctor. It makes for some debonair fucking clothing choices, but I'm the same member of the club as old Tubby Rowlands. That that type of stuff. It's like, no, like, that is. I get that it's like you're kind of thumbing your nose at authority by joining the authority that you're thumbing your nose at, but then again, like, it's like you're acting like the Time Lords act, and
Mm.
you left their society.
Yeah.
So mixed messages there. Um, and again, there are aspects of his performance that I love. Every callback to Inferno and the
Mm.
fact that that stuck with his character, beautiful, absolutely fucking beautiful. Um, his his first season with Joe, I think, is a really good season, and it shows really good a shake up for that character
Mm.
because you do get to see a lot of morality there, and it's not a perfect season, mind you, but there is some really good discussions to be had in it, and there's some really good, nice character moments. So in the number 2 spot at the
Mm.
moment is Tom, is the Fourth Doctor. His first 3 seasons are they're great. I love the Hinchcliffe era. I adore it.
Mm.
Like Robot, like I didn't rank it as highly as you. It's still a great.
Mm.
It's still a good story, but you have Ark in Space, Santaran Experiment, Genesis of the Daleks. That's fucking 12 top quality episodes right then and there,
Mm.
you know. And unfortunately, then it just nosedives with Revenge of the Cybermen. But then you come into like the proper Sarah Jane and Doctor dynamic with season 13.
Mm.
Like it's so good, but unfortunately, we've regressed back into like the second Doctor territory there with his treatment of Leela, and I don't like it.
Mm.
It just really annoys me. And like having like I love seeing the Doctor as a flawed character. I really do. But at the same time, there's being a flawed character, and then there's just being a douchebag. And I think Four has kind of entered into his douchebag phase now at the moment.
Mm.
I think too much. I think too much personal issues bled into the latter
Mm.
half of the season, or the latter half of the run we've experienced so far. But at number 1 is someone that I never thought would be in number 1. Was definitely in my top 5, but I never thought
Mm.
would be where he is at the moment. And is someone that I have talked about at length with you, talked about it with other people, is the First Doctor.
Mm.
I absolutely adore the First Doctor. I love his character growth across those first 3 stories. And I love the first 16 stories because of the relationship he had with Ian and Barbara and Susan and Vicky and even Time Meddler. So like the first 17. Yeah, you're thinking of the line, aren't you? Space on the
Yes,
for a
I
cow.
am.
Yeah. Those stories are just beautiful.
Mm.
And I think as well, like we're not giving credit to like the unsung hero of this, who was Verity Lambert.
Yeah.
Verity Lambert was a huge driving force in those 17 stories.
Mm.
Then fuck John Wilds. But there's just so much I love about him, and like there's so much to that character. He's kind, he's compassionate, he's intelligent, he's brave. He's, yes, cantankerous.
Mm.
Yes, at times he is morally dubious, but those are the early parts of that character.
Mm.
As he grows, it's a pleasure to watch him grow because of who he ends up being.
Mm.
And we didn't see eye to eye on the story. Well, we saw eye to eye on aspects of the story, but the massacre,
Mm.
episode 4, specifically the last 10 or so minutes, I would say are fantastic Doctor Who.
Mm.
I can't save anyone.
Mm.
Where I can't interfere. I'm not allowed. And like that's going to be done again just on par in another story, which we will eventually get to, and I can't wait for it. And that leads to one of the best monologues in the show that to this day is there. Is the "They're All Gone" monologue.
Mm.
So yeah, I just like I could fucking go on and on about him, but he's my favorite.
We agree in placement of all of those.
All right.
So currently in the 4 position, it's Patrick Troughton. Like I said, the second Doctor has some lovely moments. I loved him in Enemy of the World. I thought it was fantastic.
Yep.
His moment with Victoria in
Tomb of the
Tomb
Cybermen.
of the Cybermen,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. But you and I have talked about it before. You know, people looking back saying like, "Oh, the first Doctor was sexist and whatever."
Mm.
No, no. The second Doctor, if you want to shine a light on someone for like on a Doctor as being sexist, that light lands firmly on 2.
Mm.
Stop shining on 1. It doesn't belong on him. I think with Patrick, I completely agree with you. There's this ego that is so petulant. It's not fun. It's not funny. It's annoying, and it makes him like it causes issues in the story. It's a flaw of the character, but it's a flaw I can't get around. Do you know?
Yeah.
Like some characters have flaws, and their flaws you accept as being part of them, and it's part of the reason why I like them. This is a flaw that I can't accept as part of the character. It's the reason why I don't
Mm.
like him as much. So for me, Patrick is number 4. Number 3 is 3. The main reason why is he has some brilliant moments. Like I said, Inferno, fantastic. All of the callbacks for Inferno, fantastic. Like, his regeneration sequence, like, the whole last bit of Planet of Spiders went on for a while.
Yeah.
But the whole last half of that last episode was fucking brilliant. But there is a little bit of sexism in there.
Mm.
Not as strong, in my opinion, as Patrick, but it is in there.
Yeah.
It is the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy has got to stop.
Mm. Yeah.
In
No.
in multiple ways, right? You have the Silurians versus the Sea Devils.
Mm-hmm.
You big giant raging hypocrite. But then you also have this hypocrisy of, oh, you're the brigadier and his guns and blah 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 blah. It's like, then stop working for him. Go get a job somewhere else. Go set up your own whatever. Oh wait, you can't. Because these people are housing you, feeding you, and protecting you. So either respectfully disagree or shut the fuck up. Or leave. Those are your 3 options.
Mm.
But like I still you called it out at the time in the Demons where Joe makes a comment the same as a comment he would make and he rakes her over the coals for it.
Yeah.
It's like the hypocrisy is unparalleled. The other thing as well, you said that like his first season with Joe was really good. I'm a bit in between on that because that's also the first season with the Master, and that is a toxic fucking relationship.
Oh, it
If
is.
ever I saw one. And the reactions are very unsettling. Like, hey, he just shot someone. Oh, that Master, off he goes again. And I'm like, dude, like, read the room. Like, what the hell? So for me, that's why, like, again, some lovely stuff as well. Like, some fantastic episodes. I love him with Liz Shaw. I wish we had more of the 2 of them together because their dynamic was so great. Like, his whole introduction to Liz Shaw, you know, the eyebrows thing, whatever,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And like the trust he has in her and whatever, that's brilliant. Unfortunately, largely during his time with Joe, it kind of goes off into fucking. And then, oh, there's the possessiveness of Joe. I'm not going to go into the Green Death because I'll be here forever.
Yeah.
Number 2, we have Tom. Tom, for pretty much the entire time of Doctor Who, Tom was that top spot. Tom was amazing. I had only seen Tom with Liz, and I agree with you. He's entering into a phase now that I do not enjoy. Um, you know, there's being he doesn't like Lila using weapons. Okay, cool. He's going more down the pacifist route, whatever. Cool. You can play with that. If it was just that, he might even still be in the number one spot, to be honest, if it was just that. But how fucking dare you continue to treat her like she's a fucking monkey
Mm.
or something? It's no, no. Like all of the amazingness with Sarah Jane is just like, and dive off the cliff. I'm like, what the hell? I'm curious to see the next few companions because if this continues, will he drop down further? And this is the problem of if Tom's run is so long.
Mm.
Are we even halfway through it? Are we just about halfway through?
What is it there now? We've done. No, we've got
So we've
four
done
more
4 seasons.
seasons.
Yeah, so we're halfway through.
Wait, have we done four? No, we haven't done 4 seasons. We've done 3 seasons of Tom.
No, we did Robot.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Oh
Zygons.
wait, oh, wait. So we have done 4 seasons.
No, no, 4 seasons.
Oh, sorry. So we've 3 seasons. 3 seasons to go.
Okay, so we're over halfway there. It's going to be a very interesting second half. I was going to put it that way.
Yeah.
And in the number one spot, we have Bill, which is probably incredibly surprising. Like, if you had said before we started the podcast, hey, in 3 years' time, Trisha's favorite Doctor is going to be the first Doctor. What? Okay. Like, I liked him, like I said before, but I will defend that character and Bill's legacy with that character to my fucking dying day. I love him so much. And I was thinking about it a while ago, and I was like, this sounds so soppy and sentimental, but I never knew either of my granddads. Right? I'd want Doc Bill as my granddad.
Aww.
Do you know? It's like, yeah, he'd be a cool granddad. Do you know? Which is the thing, because he is a granddad.
Yeah.
Do you know? And you get that from him. He's a cantankerous fecker for the first 3. And I think that's the difference, I think, between all of the others and Bill, is that Bill had that brilliant arc in the first 3. And then we see him continuing to grow little bit by little bit, taking in Vicky, or letting go of Susan, taking in Vicky, the way he is with the others. He continues to grow. The others don't in the same way. And particularly in Tom's case, he's now developing down in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as in, he's not learning, he's developing new behaviors that aren't good. The end of the Dalek invasion of Earth, letting go of Susan. Go forward in all of your beliefs. Like, the ending of the massacre, I fucking hated the massacre as a story. But the monologue, do you know, his relationship with Barbara is amazing. The way he is with Vicky is brilliant. Like, even though like Dodo didn't really get a lot, he also had a really nice relationship with Dodo. Do you know what I mean? He had nice relationships with pretty much all of his companions. Like, I can't think of anyone he had a outright bad relationship with.
No, neither can I.
Do you know what I mean? Some people he gave way more slack than they were due, but like,
oh yeah.
But he also, as he grew, there wasn't that hypocrisy that we see with, say, John. There was no sexism. I cannot stress this enough. He had, and again, we're talking about the character, not necessarily Bill, right? Because this is the Bill as an over. The first Doctor had so much respect for women. It really is. I mean, you said that you hold up Barbara as the companion, hey, if you're looking at a classic companion, you gotta start at the beginning. If you're looking at the classic Doctor and like the friendships and the dynamics, you have to hold him up.
Mm-hmm.
For years, I didn't because I was watching for Ian and Barbara, but like he's he's the impish little granddad,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and I still remember because it's up on my shelf when Shane made the little tiny Bill Hartnell thing.
Yeah.
He's up on my shelf with my like Eagle Moss Bill Hartnell's,
Oh.
and like he's cute and adorable. So yeah, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So we've gone on for an hour and a half
Yeah, and we haven't
at
even.
time of recording with our own questions.
Yeah.
This is what happens when we go completely fucking off beat. But has our now time for questions from our listeners. So we got a couple of questions from some of our long-term listeners. So we'll go in the order that I wrote them down.
All right.
So Shane is up first.
Mm-hmm.
So Shane's question: if you could pick any actor in the world, man or woman, to replace a Doctor's run, who would you pick, and who would they replace? Bonus points if they are contemporaries. I'm not really going for bonus points, Shane, because my brain doesn't work that way. Paddy's does this, maybe he's going for bonus points. So I'm not going to lie, I have 4.
Okay, go for it.
So my 4 are, let me pull it up. And some of these have no rhyme or reason whatsoever.
Okay.
Right. The first one, I tried to look at people who were the same age.
Right.
Which is John Pertwee, Christopher Lee.
Interesting choice. Very interesting choice.
Yeah. I think so. In my head, I was trying to find someone for Bill Hartnell. We already kind of have Bill Hartnell and Peter Cushing. Like, that's already a thing. And then I was like, oh, Peter Cushing. And then my brain went, oh, Christopher Lee. And I was like, ooh. Like, I think it's because John Pertwee is the Bond Doctor. And like Christopher Lee's stories from the war.
Yeah.
Like, I can see him doing that really well. Do you know?
It's conceivable that he killed a man with a lunch tray.
Yeah. Do you know? I can see him in that. Do you know? And I think I haven't seen a lot of fun Christopher Lee, so I would quite like to see some fun Christopher Lee.
if you want to watch fun Christopher Lee, I would highly recommend Gremlins 2, because he's still a bad guy in it, but it's so hammy. It's just wonderful. So yeah, Gremlins 2. Which also has Robert Picardo with hair.
Oh wow, that's weird.
Yeah.
Next on my list, no idea why. I think it's just the optics of the change. And like going from potentially one extreme to another is Sylvester McCoy for Brian Blessed. Why? I don't know. I just think it would be brilliant.
Ace, you're not shouting loudly enough.
I think it's just Sylvester does have a little bit of that impishness.
Yeah.
That I think Brian actually does impishness quite well in various stuff, do you know what I mean? But it's the darkness in Sylvester, like that coming through of Brian's voice, I think would be amazing.
Brian's a great actor, and if you've ever seen him in Henry V, Kenneth Branagh's version of it, there's a scene called the Iron Ultimatum, where basically he in full armor goes up and he gives an ultimatum to the King of France and the Dauphin, and it's like you can see him in that exact garb giving like a Doctor Who speech. Yeah. So yeah, I can see that.
Okay, next we have Peter Capaldi and Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
I quite like the idea of, because I think Peter's Doctor goes through a very interesting growth phase. He starts being kind of cold and whatever, and eventually becomes incredibly warm. Whatever. But I sort of like imagine you have the character starting off quite cold, and instead just becoming Ian.
Yeah.
Because Ian McKellen is so loving and so sweet and so genuine and so kind, and he would make such a good Doctor. Do you know? And if I was to swap him out with someone, like imagine Ian McKellen with Bill Potts. I mean,
Mm.
come on, that would be brilliant. And then my fourth choice, Shane's like, I only asked for one choice, but
Yeah.
my fourth choice is, and this is something that I said at the time, Jodie Whittaker, Hayley Atwell. And I have a couple of reasons for that. One,
Okay.
I always wanted Hayley Atwell to play a female Doctor. I just always
Mm-hmm.
and ever. Two, and this is more about the optics and reception of Jodie's Doctor. Hayley already had nerd cred.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people internationally with Jodie may have known Jodie from Broadchurch,
Mm-hmm.
which is they had Jodie and Chris Chibnall together,
Mm-hmm.
which may not have been a good connection
Mm.
for some people. Hayley has great nerd cred with Marvel and her work on that. Agent Carter, fantastic. The show and the character in the films. But Hayley is also incredibly funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she would have made an amazing Doctor. And I think if you put her in Jodie's stories, I think the stories, like, because this is the thing that I asked Shane, like, are the stories changing? He's like, no, not really. The story fundamentally remains the same. But I wonder if people would have accepted it more.
Yeah,
because she has that nerd cred going in.
And like, I think when you're speaking specifically on that point, everyone that came into the role of the Doctor, we'll go with just the revival era.
Mm.
No one, David Tennant really didn't have international recognition outside of being Barty Crouch in Harry Potter, which again, I wouldn't say is a huge amount of nerd cred.
No.
Matt Smith, it was his first big gig. Peter Capaldi, in the thick of it, Skins,
Doctor Who.
Yeah, and like, oh no, I know, all fantastic actors, and Jodie herself is a fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah, she's brilliant. Yeah.
But Jodie fucking landed into a minefield
Yeah.
because of who she was and what she was representing.
Mm.
Hayley going into that same minefield, yeah, Hayley cushions the blow.
Yeah, and I wonder if
which is a horrible thing to say, but
it's a horrible way of doing it. But I'm curious to see Hayley do it anyway, because Hayley was always my number one pick. You know, when they were talking about like changing showrunners, like Hayley was my number one pick. She's also my number one pick for Generation. She's going to continue. Oh yeah, I will forever want to see Hayley in that role. I'm just saying that. But in terms of the fan response, and maybe, I don't know, maybe some of the writing in reaction to the fan response, which I don't know how they did that. I wonder if Kaylee's nerd cred would have cushioned the blow and given her at least more leeway to develop, to establish herself before people got the knives out.
There's one story that I'm picturing in my head with Hayley in mind, and it's Rosa, and I can see her. Yeah, I can see her easily bringing her flair to that role.
Yeah.
In that part, Hayley's a good choice. Hayley's a very good choice.
So Shane, you got 4 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do contemporaries, it didn't really work, but whatever. You're 4 for 1.
Cool.
Paddy, go.
I have one of each.
Ooh.
I have a mal and ephemal. So I've said it to you multiple times, and I remember repeatedly saying it on like message boards and chat and stuff at the time. After David Tennant, I wanted Robert Carlyle.
Yes, you did. I remember.
I wanted Robert Carlyle because I love Robert Carlyle. He is a fantastic actor, and I'm glad he has the recognition he has on a worldwide scale because of stuff like Once Upon a Time. That's probably for more, I suppose, maybe mainstream audience. But like, if you look at his stuff, like, now I haven't seen Trainspotting, but I know of the character from it. But like,
I saw Trainspotting when I was way too young to watch Trainspotting.
But like,
I haven't seen it since.
But like, fucking the full Monty, 28 28 weeks later, Plunkett and McLean, which is a funny fucking movie. Even his work on Stargate Universe,
Mm.
but like, and also the Bond villain from The World's Not Enough.
Mm.
He is a versatile actor,
Mm.
and I would love to have seen him in the 11th Doctor's tenure. Putting him into the stories, I can see him working just as well as Matt Smith did.
Me too.
And
maybe less of the weirdness with him and Amy, but
yeah, like the interactions between him and Amy wouldn't have been as weird, and for me that might have saved Amy's early character.
Me too.
Because I don't particularly like early Amy. Not young Amelia, early Amy. Two very different characters. But like a lot of people love the Rings of Akatan speech.
Mm.
I can see Robert Carlyle fucking belting that out.
Mm.
Even like the introduction, like the whole, fish custard type scene.
Mm.
I can see Robert Carlyle just.
I'd love to see him in Rubber. Him and River would be interesting.
River. Oh yeah, no, that would be great. That would be really, really good. Also, Vincent and the Doctor. I think that would be a wonderful.
Oh, that'd be a great story for him.
Yeah. So Robert Carlyle, I want him to be the Doctor at some stage because he is fucking phenomenal. And for Jodie's run, I went with someone that has, I wouldn't say has nerd cred, but has huge cred. Emma Thompson. I would love if Emma Thompson in Jodie's era.
Yeah. It depends. Emma Thompson at any point would be great. There is another person I was trying to fit in, but I didn't know who I'd swapped them out for, which was Helen Mirren. But I didn't know who I'd swap her out for.
Young Helen Mirren, you could easily have swapped out with John Pertwee, I think.
Mm.
Yeah. But then, like, her Liz on screen would just put men into a fucking coma. Like, a good coma. Like, just like, older Helen.
I'm thinking because I think you could do Helen and Sylvester. I think would be interesting. Because Helen can do cold and calculating.
Yes, well, of course she can.
Do you know? But sorry, you were talking about Emma. Sorry.
Emma Thompson has everything. She has everything down. It's amazing. Like, there's one role I love her. It's one of her later roles, and it's a very small role, but still funny. It's Bridget Jones's baby. She plays the OBGYN, and she's fucking hilarious. Like, there's a part in it like where there's a paternity test needs to be taken to see who's the father of the baby, and she's like, "Oh, it's just like the X Factor, isn't it? Dial 1 if it's Mark, dial 2 if it's." And she says as she walks out of the room, she's so fucking funny, and like she can be a serious actress, she can be a funny actress, she can be an emotional actress, she can also be a villain at times. Like, she is great. And just as well as I can see Haley in Rosa, I can see Emma in Rosa as well.
I could too. There's a couple of Emmas that are coming into my mind as you're talking. A couple of roles. First is Much Ado. Like, Emma Much Ado is phenomenal. Also has Brian Blessed.
Yes, it does.
But Emma's Much Ado is fantastic. But also, the Cambridge Footlights reviews. You really get to see Emma's humour shine, like her with Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie and the whole crowd. I think that's the thing about Emma, is that she can sell humour. She can sell slapstick. One of my favourite clips of Emma Thompson is on a Graham Norton interview she did, where she was talking about how she went to Reading Festival and she tried to use one of those I can't remember what it's called, like a shiwi or something. One of those things are to allow women to pee standing up, right? And she was talking about how it didn't work at all, and she got pee all down herself. And is it Cara Delevingne was on it with her, and she was like, she was saying that she was imagining someone, completely stoned at Reading Festival walking past, and was like, "Is Nanny McPhee covered in wee?" But like she was Nanny McPhee, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah, I think Emma Thompson would be great at any point in time,
yeah.
and I think you could actually swap Emma out for any of them,
Mm.
really. Particularly
I
any of
would
the
say,
modern Doctors, you could definitely
yeah.
swap Emma out for any of them.
No, Christopher Eccleston's run. You could put Emma Thompson in there. David's run, absolutely. I think of,
I
I
think
think of all.
Matt's run is probably the one that she'd struggle the most with in terms of
Yeah.
just those stories. I don't think she'd maybe be the best fit there, but
Mm. See, the thing is, like, whereas, like, when it comes to the Ring of Akatan speech, and she goes, if she was to say, "Take it all, baby," I can just imagine her story about trapping Stephen Fry at the end of a foot of stairs while she flashes him. Yeah, like so,
it's
like
all
that.
yours.
Yeah,
We're lover.
yeah. Oh God, traumatizing for Stephen Fry, but hilarious at the same time. Oh, so we have two questions. We have several questions from
We have four
two of our.
questions from Paul.
Yeah, we have four questions from Paul, and we have one question from Dan, who is
Yeah.
Paul's co-host on the Half Measures podcast. And I'm wondering, will we save Dan's question for last, or will
Yeah.
we have it for? Okay, fair
We'll do
enough.
that just about.
Cool.
Okay, so Paul has four questions.
Hmm.
Okay. His first one, I think you've kind of answered already, maybe. Um, if you could only review one more Doctor's run, who would it be and why?
So I thought about this, and I have two answers: one for me and one for you.
Hmm.
If we are to do one more Doctor's run together, I would like to do Colin's run with you
Hmm.
because I want to get your impressions on Colin's run. If we're to do one more review for me, I would like to go back and reassess Matt Smith's run.
Hmm. I also have two.
Okay.
My first one was actually Sylvester because we didn't get to talk about it, and I really, really, really want to talk to you about Sylvester's run.
Mm-hmm.
I also agree with you about Matt. You and I formed an opinion about Matt Smith's Doctor very early on in his run, like
Mm-hmm.
first episodes. I remember sitting in your house in Deer Park watching the vampire one,
Yeah.
whatever that was called. Um, and I remember us both kind of being like, okay. And I remember us talking and being like, what the hell? And we didn't enjoy it. And eventually I just stopped watching and you sort of let me know when there was a good episode or whatever. We were young, girl. We had our opinion of what good Doctor Who was.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big chip on our shoulder that you've already commented on.
Mm.
That at the time we largely blamed Matt Smith for.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I'm thinking it's Stephen Moffat.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's me saying that based on the fact I didn't like it when I first watched it. But looking at it with a critical view, because, you know, Paul loves Matt Smith's run.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if for no other reason, for love of Paul, I would love for us to do
Yeah.
Matt Smith's run.
Yeah.
Because I think, because Paul asked us both separately on our thoughts, and I think he was a bit surprised.
Yeah.
So,
End subscription.
yeah, you and I can talk about whoever we want off the air.
Yeah.
But I think for the proper, like, Doctor, companions, villains, stories, story of the five, I think it would have to be Matt.
Yeah.
All for you, Paul. It would have to be Matt.
Yeah.
This we may have already covered. Again, I have it. How about you? What's the biggest surprise in the four Doctors you've covered so far?
I think it's the I suppose you could say the restructuring of the hierarchy from four going down to one, just fucking catapulting into the lead. Like,
I agree.
this is how much the first Doctor has had an impact on the two of us. We have been fucking waiting on the edge of our seats and looking at the dispatch emails for they're re-releasing well, fingers crossed that that's the plan. They're re-releasing classic seasons of Doctor Who with updated what is it,
They're doing
definitions, high
Blu-ray
definition.
releases of it.
Yeah, they're doing Blu-ray releases with like all this behind the sofa stuff that Tricia's been on about and just new features and everything. And they finally did one for the second Doctor. Now, unfortunately, it's going to include the Crusade, which is 2 episodes missing, and they're not animating them. They're just doing stills with linking narration. But I think we're both in agreement that the second season is our favorite Hartnell season. We've been waiting for this, and we're both getting it for Christmas. Yeah, so like that shows you how much we've grown to love the first Doctor. So yeah, I think that's the biggest surprise.
I think it's the biggest one. I think the second surprise is probably how big of a shift Doc Tom went through from Sarah Jane to Leela.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it to be that big. I knew some of the behind the scenes stuff, and I knew kind of a bit like Tom's later stuff. I'd heard some talk about Tom's later stuff. I wasn't expecting it to be that obvious straight away. Do you know? But I think the big thing is just Bill. Bill just shooting up in the rankings, and yeah, I can't wait for season 2. I'm really looking forward to Behind the Sofas for that. I don't know who they have. I love those Behind the Sofas things. They're really cool. But yeah, no, I'm really, really looking forward to that now. The films are good. I love it. Also, if you haven't seen the trailer for it, the trailers that they release for these Blu-ray special editions are all phenomenal. The season 2 trailer is brilliant.
My favorite of the trailers was for season 23, which is the Trial of a Time Lord season. It's Colin Baker in an actual courtroom, as he is at the moment, just basically reiterating parts of the speech to a judge, which is like, I think it was like for a speeding ticket or something.
I actually really liked the one they had for Sylvester season that they did, because it had a charitable Earth Aces Foundation and stuff, which was really, really cool. But yeah, would highly recommend those trailers because they're really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Next question.
What classic Who story are you looking forward to the most?
I've thought about this. And no, as much as I've been happy on about wanting to get to Colin's run, I think I'm most looking forward to Remembrance of the Daleks, which is Sylvester's Dalek story. Because that is when I think we're going to see is it the start? I think it's probably the start of the swing of the Cartmel plan. And I really want to discuss your initial thoughts on that. Plus, that story brings up some really interesting talking points. Stuff that Doctor Who handled more so in the classic, the early days of the classic era. So I'm looking forward to talking about that one.
Interesting. I also have a Sylvester story. Curse of Fenric.
I was like, okay, it's either going to be. For me, I was torn between 3. I was torn between Remembrance of the Daleks, Ghostlight, and Curse of Fenric.
Yeah, Curse of Fenric is. We'll have to decide what version of Curse of Fenric we're going to do. Because I think they did 2 edits of it. They have like a feature-length edit and they got the normal edit. But in terms of Doctor, companion, villain discussion points, that one is rich in all 3, I think. And again, because we haven't really discussed it, we discussed it a little bit, but we haven't really gotten into it. I'm really like, the minute I watched that story, I was like, oh, I can't wait till we get to that. And like, it's so far away.
Like, I think probably what we'll end up doing is like Planet of Giants. We'll probably recap the normal version and then we'll talk about the edit points.
Yeah.
For the theatrical
version. I am curious. Actually, I'll get to the end. Never mind. Never mind. Remind me when we get to the end. I had a thing I wanted to say.
All right.
Okay. Paul's fourth question. Fourth question. You can bring back any companion or villain to New Who. Who would it be and why?
Companion Susan. Bring back Susan. Let her have some sort of a fucking meet up again with any version of, because that's what we thought we got with End of Time. We thought we might get that with fucking Capaldi. Just bring her back. I also picked a villain, or this was the two villains that I think I wanted most to come back have come back, and that's the Sontarans and the Ice Warriors. One crowd and I've said it a few times, that I would like to see come back with the benefit of a modern day budget is the Menoptera.
Yeah.
I would like to see the Menoptera have a return. And possibly a prequel story that leads to the birth of the Animus. Because the Animus is we're 96 stories in? And we keep, I keep anyway, comparing stuff to the Animus.
Yeah. So for companion, I have the exact same person.
Yes.
Acknowledge she fucking existed. For Christ's sake. We thought we got it in End of Time. I thought we were going to get it in the 50th anniversary. Is it the 50th? No. Yes?
Well, the 50th was
the Rose thing.
The John Hurt thing.
Yeah. I thought we were going to get there. We didn't. We didn't get it in the centenary episode either. Although we did get we got Ian. We got Ian. I nearly cried.
Fuck you. I did cry.
We could have gotten it with Peter. And I'm just we got a little bit with Peter. We got an acknowledgement she existed with Peter because her picture was on his desk when he was in the first episode where Bill meets, or first episode of his last season where Bill Potts goes into his office. He's got a picture of River and then a black and white picture of Susan. I'm like, cool. You've acknowledged it. Bring her back. I think the biggest, I'm looking forward to Russell T Davies coming back. I think the biggest kind of fuck you to classic fans that Russell T Davies did, in my opinion, was in End of Time. We have a woman with short-ish browny red hair who stands to the left-hand side of Rassilon. And she's the one who's the doctor's seeing her all the time. Whatever. I watched that story and I'm like, that's Susan. Oh my god, they brought back Susan. They didn't bring back Caroline John, which is a bit shit. But I was like, that's clearly meant to be Susan.
Caroline Ford.
Caroline John and Caroline. You know who I meant. I think that's clearly meant to be Susan. Meant to be a future regeneration of Susan. Obviously. Who does Russell T Davies say it was? The Doctor's man. Who we never fucking heard about before, to my knowledge. And no one fucking cares.
Well, this is the thing as well, is that according to the 8th Doctor movie, which I am also looking forward to watching and reviewing with you, is...
the Doctor's half human, isn't he?
On his mother's side.
Yeah.
That's the line. But also, if it hadn't been Susan, the other logical person was Romana.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think Susan needs to come back. In terms of a villain, the main villain I wanted to come back did, which is I wanted proper Sontarans. And we got them in spades in flux.
Or spuds. It would depend.
I loved them in flux. They were probably the one big villain I really want it to come back. In terms of an individual villain, I don't know if they'd get away. I think they'd have to rename him. Is a Celestial Toymaker.
Saying nothing.
See, when you say saying nothing, that is saying something. If you just keep your mouth shut.
No, it's a Neil Patrick Harris is going
oh,
to.
oh, please don't tell me he's. Oh, God.
No. They said that he is playing a character who a theory is that he is the toy maker, who will just be called the toy maker.
He better not fuck. If it is okay, Trish doesn't really do spoilers, so this is as far as we're going with this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If that is who he is, he better not fuck it up.
I have complete faith in Neil Patrick Harris.
I don't.
Okay.
I didn't particularly like him in the latest Matrix movie.
Right.
And I like him in How I Met Your Mother. But I didn't really like him in the latest Matrix movie. And I am concerned that he often plays the same. Like, he plays the same all the time.
No, I watched Russell T Davis's show It's a Sin, and he's in that for one episode. Fuck it, it's a great show. I'd recommend anyone to watch It's a Sin. Neil Patrick Harris is in it, and it's a sad show, and he's got a very sad story in it, but he's really good in it. And no, I didn't watch the Netflix version on Series of Unfortunate Events. I heard he was great in it. But I've seen him in other stuff that Neil Patrick Harris has the range to pull off being the Celestial Toymaker.
We'll see if that is who it is, and we're not going to discuss it past today because Trish doesn't do spoilers. This is literally like
yes, all spoiler.
Paddy should have said nothing.
all spoiler talk should be directed towards me, and I will sit on it as best I can. I remember being in a car once with Trish, and I accidentally said something about Star Trek Into Darkness, and she went to mockingly hit me, but instead she just gave me dagger eyes instead. So yeah, that was a kind of quiet car ride.
Yeah, no, I hate spoilers.
I have to warn, when we go see the movies together, I have to tell Trish whenever a Star Wars or Marvel related trailer is coming up, so she can close her eyes and sometimes cover her ears.
Yeah. I have this annoying habit when it comes to. Okay, I'm going to explain the spoiler thing, right? Because I had a discussion with a friend of ours, Vicky, around are cast announcements spoilers? And in my world, yes, they fucking are. You know, if you say Catherine Tate is going to be in XYZ relating to Doctor Who, but Catherine Tate already plays a character in Doctor Who. So, or if you say the cast of the original of the Next Generation are going to be in season 3 of Picard, well, I fucking know who they're going to be, don't I? Right? So, two things happens with me with spoilers. One is, and this is what happened with Game of Thrones, which is really where this spun up. I sometimes have this annoying tendency to predict what's going to happen based on the spoilers, which completely removes my enjoyment of the thing whatsoever. Or two, I hear the spoiler, I get an idea of what's going to be in my head, and I'm always let down. So I prefer just to go into things blind and enjoy them for what they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're about to go into our last question. And while I would love to hear everyone's answer to our last question, for those who can answer it, who know what we're talking about, I will say all of the questions that we've had so far, and there is a few of them, I'm going to say that when we put this episode out on Monday, maybe Monday night or Tuesday, I was going to do a follow-up tweet, and maybe do it on Facebook as well. I was listing out what the questions were, because I really would love to hear other people's answers.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
If we could only review one more Doctor's Run, which one would you want it to be? Or, you know, if you could replace the characters or whatever. So I do want to hear everyone's answers on these questions as well, particularly those of you who asked them. But, last question. From Dan the Man, the other half of the Half Measures podcast.
Yes.
At the next point of regeneration, either Dan or Paul, co-hosts of the Half Marathons podcast, if we haven't mentioned it enough already, becomes the Doctor. The other becomes the companion. Please provide your rationale as to which one is which. And what I will say is, Dan, that's a really hard question, you fucker.
So, I'll take the pressure off you for the moment. So, I jokingly responded to Trish that it could be either Dan would be the Doctor saving his companion Paul from getting into trouble, or Dan would be the companion saving the Doctor, who was Paul, from wandering into trouble. But I think, in all seriousness, Paul would probably end up being the Doctor, and Dan would probably be the companion.
Why?
Listening to the two of them and having interacted with them like quite a bit, because we've guested with them we've guested together twice. Well, we guested on their show, they guested on our show, and then I guested separately on their show. And it's just like the level of interaction there between the two of them. I could just as easily say like that because Paul is the bigger Doctor Who fan of the two of them. He's probably the most like, that would be the only qualifier. But there's just something about Paul's a very quirky person, I think, in the best possible way. And we have great conversations. And I can easily see Paul in like a tweed trench coat, just like pointing a fucking sonic screwdriver at something, and then just waiting around the corner to, I don't know, tell him to run or bash someone's head in or do something or other like that. Like, it's not like, the thing is, like, it's not a hierarchy or anything like that. It's just that's the way I see the two of them.
So I could have gone either way.
Yeah.
Like if I was to watch Dan and Paul in Doctor Who, I could put it either way. I actually went with Dan as the Doctor and Paul as the companion because this is so weird. It's so weird saying this about people who are friends, by the way. Dan, which is what makes this conversation so difficult. Like, Dan and Paul, right?
Yeah.
Next regeneration, either Paddy's the Doctor or Tricia's the Doctor and the other's the companion. Provide your rationale, please.
Would you fuck off? We both know the answers that they're going to give to that. No, do I this? But the only problem is now with this is that with your answer and my answer, we're both off one of their Christmas card lists.
So my rationale here is Paul strikes me as the type of person who would start his companion journey as a bit of an Ian and end up as like a Sarah Jane circa Hand of Fear.
I can see him in Andy Pandy overalls. Yeah.
No, but it was that he'd start off quite serious because, like, for anyone who's ever heard Paul has a very soft voice, a very calming voice. So you can see him starting off as like the soft, calming presence, and then over time losing himself in it and just going with the flow. And by the end of it, he doesn't care. He's wearing Andy Pandy overalls, whatever. Dan, on the other hand, I can see just being like, fuck it, we're going on an adventure. Where do you want to go? Spin the wheel. Off we pop.
Paul in his overalls swearing like a sailor because apparently we have influenced, like apparently we swear an awful lot.
Yes,
who the fuck had thought it?
Which is why, when me and Paddy were first making this podcast, one of the things that we had to agree on very early on was if we were going to swear.
Yeah.
And on certain podcasting sites, if you're going to be swearing, you should put an explicit filter on it if you're going to be swearing, because it's not necessarily appropriate for young children, isn't it? We just put an explicit filter on the show as a whole.
No. To be fair, we did try for like the first 2 episodes, and then we just went, "Fuck it, it's too much effort."
This is meant to be you and me.
Yeah.
And this is how we talk.
We just agreed that there's one word we won't say, and I'm pretty sure we haven't said it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why, because in some parts of the world it's a perfectly fine word, and in other parts of the world it's really not.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so that's my rationale. I think Dan would be like, let's go on an adventure, fucking spin the wheel, see where we end up, whatever. Paul would maybe be a bit more reserved at the beginning, and then go through our companion development arc, which I think would be great.
And because Dan is like, they both are big Martin Freeman fans, and they're also both big Lord of the Rings fans. Just I can see, Dad running through the Shire, going, "I'm going on an adventure."
And Paul remember going, "What? Where are we going?" Okay, cool. I'll come too.
Yes. So we covered all our bases there.
Yeah.
And hopefully either not offended or 100% offended both of them. I want no middle ground with this.
Cool. This has been really fun.
It really has. It really has. Because like, I suppose like we are kind of limited like in essentially a time restriction thing where we do try to keep stuff like to within like, we try miserably to keep it within 2 hours. But like we have, I think, was it 2:35 is probably our longest one, and that was for a fucking 4-parter. Or no, it's a 6-parter, sorry. But yeah, no, it was nice to have like this type of conversation with stuff.
I think as well, because you and I do a lot of chatter before and after, where we do discuss some of these types of things and whatever, but no one ever gets to hear that.
Yeah.
And I will say, because you didn't ask me the question, what was my least favorite part of the podcasting experience?
Yes.
So I have two.
Okay.
One, I have handed off to Paddy because I got sick of doing it. I fucking hate listening to the sound of my own voice. When you're editing the podcast, that sometimes goes on for over 2 hours. Listening to your own voice gets a bit monotonous, so I've handed that off to Paddy for a while. We may take turns and stuff back and whatever. But the second thing is that, particularly this year, in comparison to the first year that we were doing this, my work this year was so hectic. We missed so many weeks because I was too tired, or I was away, or whatever. So I quite like the fact that we sort of made the decision the other day to be like, do it, fuck it, let's not put ourselves under pressure. Like, my sister's getting married next week, then it's Christmas. I'm just into a new role, you're in a new role in work. And we were like, let's not put ourselves under pressure. Let's just shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Just shoot the shit. And like I said, Paul gets to hear what we're like talking on a more regular basis. I quite like this. I think we should maybe do these a bit more regularly. Like, maybe once every 6 months.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. It's like, it's not necessarily like there won't always be a ranking system because we may not have
but we just
substantial change. Yeah, just have just regular chats about stuff.
Yeah,
maybe bring in some outside interests into things.
Yeah, like Andor.
Yes,
Andor's great. And on that, let's end the podcast.
Yeah. I can just see him now.
But
yeah. But another thing as well, and it's like, I don't like we talk about the guys quite a bit. But another person that is been very loyal to us, one of our loyal listeners, and has just been externally a very good friend and a very good person to me, was Shane. Sorry, is Shane. Jesus Christ, speaking the past tense speaking. Shane was someone that helped promote the podcast in the early days because he thought I was a nice person, the fool, and he promoted the podcast. Now, Shane had never seen Doctor Who or anything like that, but he has listened to us since day dot because he has an interest in the show through the podcast. And that's kind of what we said, is like that, or kind of a hope that even if you couldn't go back and watch the older stuff, at least knowing the stories and the characters in them would fill the void, or maybe just do something in that regards. And so I think I'm very appreciative of the fact that Shane is a very loyal listener. And again, we thank Norm and John from the Mission Log podcast of the Runbury Podcast Network. Also, guys like Earl, thank you very much, Earl. Who has brought up some good funny talking points, and just like other people we've known through like various different groups and the people that have reached out to us, and all the listeners as well. So again, we hope you enjoy your Christmas. That Christmas trees,
or Hanukkah, or New Year's, or whatever it is you celebrate,
or whatever it is this time of year. Thank you. That whatever festive decorations don't come alive and try and murder you all. And while, yes, we won't be speaking to you for a number of weeks, we'll be speaking to each other pretty much once this podcast ends.
So until the new year.
Yep. Bye.